Welcome to Blueprint, Expo City Dubai's podcast where we meet the visionaries and innovators shaping Dubai's future. Tune in for candid conversations, discover how Expo City is driving transformation, and uncover the ideas that inspire fresh ways of imagining what's next.
Today, I am thrilled to welcome a true titan of the aviation industry, Paul Griffiths, CEO of Dubai Airports, the company which runs Dubai International Airport and Al Maktoum International Airport. Paul's 18 years as CEO have been integral to the transformation of Dubai into the world's leading travel and tourism hub. Paul combines strategic vision and business acumen with the operational precision and rigor required to handle nearly 100 million passengers a year and over 2,200 flights every day. Paul is now spearheading the $35 billion expansion of Al Maktoum Airport, which sits adjacent to us here at Expo City, into the world's largest airport with 5 runways and capacity for 240 million passengers a year. Paul's career has spanned software, logistics, airlines, and railways, and he's also a highly accomplished cathedral organist playing the organ at the Papal Mass in Abu Dhabi during Pope Francis's historic visit in 2019. Paul, a very warm welcome to Expo City and the Blueprint podcast.
Thank you so much, Shoto. Listening to your introduction, I was wondering who you were talking about for a moment, but really comprehensive. Thank you.
Well, it is a thrill for us to have you here, and I'd actually like to start with an observation. Whenever you're announcing and being interviewed about the latest passenger numbers coming out through DXB, I've noticed you don't actually use the term passengers. You refer to them as your guests, rather like a hotel would. I'd love to hear more about your philosophy towards customer service and how you're constantly seeking to enhance the traveler's experience through DXB.
Well, my love of aviation actually came quite late. I was 19 before I first flew. And the whole excitement of getting on an aeroplane with Rolls-Royce on the engines and going to Malaga as a 19-year-old was just so fascinating. I immediately knew I was going to have a long-term romance with aviation. And let's face it, romance, aviation, that whole idea of something exotic and very, very enjoyable, if that is your starting point, then surely you can never treat the whole experience as an industrial process. And let's face it, we're not producing gallons of water, we're not producing baked beans here, we're actually dealing with people as our product. So how can you give them a technical term like passengers? We actually are in the hospitality business of delighting people, and that's why we call them guests, because whilst they're in our care, we want to make them feel as though we're pleased to have them there. They pay our salaries. They reward us by giving us feedback as to how we're doing. So you've got to treat people, not as numbers. That's really the philosophy behind the idea.
And I think that speaks loud and clearly on anyone's sort of journey through the airport. I mean, there is a mixture of trepidation just because travel can be, tiring, and there's a mixture of excitement because you're going somewhere or coming back from somewhere. But really at the heart of it, airports are not really just transit hubs. They're actually a person's first and last impression of a country. So what do you think Dubai Airports conveys about Dubai as a nation?
Well, I think the first thing, of course, is this part of the world is absolutely famous for hospitality. And what we like to project is the image of modern Arabian hospitality, which actually runs through the DNA of the city. So it's only right and proper that that modern hospitality experience starts and finishes at the airport. And we are very, very conscious of the fact that first impressions are lasting impressions. And I think there's a bit of negative reinforcement. I go around so many airports around the world where the first impression I get of a country, unfortunately, is not the right impression, and that lasts for the whole visit. So I'm keen to avoid that and make sure that every one of our customer-facing people and processes reflects that idea of modern Arabian hospitality, which is reflected throughout the city. But I have to say that the whole proposition is moving so quickly. Technology and processes in today's world are moving at the speed of light, and we absolutely have to make sure that we are right ahead of that curve. The thing is, getting the numbers, getting the people, getting the guests through the airport is a challenge. But the biggest challenge is, can you actually ensure that you're treating everyone with the quality of experience and civility that they deserve? That on a micro level is much more difficult. And I'm much more proud of the fact that we are judged by most to be the best airport in the world with our infrastructure that actually dates back to 1960 in part than we are with the numbers. We've been for 11 years now the largest international airports in the world. Will probably reach 100 million guests by the end of next year. And those numbers are great, but quite honestly, I'd much rather have that emotional verbatim response from my customers as to whether we're doing a good job or not.
Well, I love that thought about DXB being the best, but you're also the busiest. And now you're developing the world's largest, and Dubai likes the biggest, best, and everything. But the figures involved, you touched on them, are staggering, moving from kind of DXB capacity of around 115 to double that at the new airport. So my question is, it must be exhilarating looking down that sort of metaphorical runway as to the incredible opportunities that Al Maktoum will offer to accelerate Dubai's growth.
That's absolutely right, and it's an incredibly exciting opportunity to have been part of the development of the world's biggest and hopefully best international airport has been fantastic, and the opportunity to do it twice is even more fantastic. Yeah. So that's great. But I think the thing is, the confidence with which we face the future is really rooted in what we've achieved to date. I mean, when I arrived in 2007 and walked into my great chairman, His Highness Sheikh Ahmed bin Zayed Al Maktoum's office, and said, "Your Highness, good morning, I've arrived. What do you want me to do?" And he said just one thing. And I was thinking, this is going to be a big one. And it was a big one. And that is, never constrain the growth of aviation in Dubai. Now, how refreshing to someone who's come from the British airport and aviation background, where we're always trying to find clever ways of making more out of nothing, and not having these vastly ambitious infrastructure plans to create what is the biggest and the best. But if you look over the history, in the last 18 years, we started with 3,500 employees. Today we've got 1,700. We started with 32 million guests. We've now, this year, doing 95.3 million at DXP alone, and we're looking to cover more than 100 million by the end of 2026. And to be able to look beyond, I mean, by 2031, we are likely to have something like 120 million people coming through the airports every year. And then that's when we absolutely need, by 2032, the new airport to be up and running in its initial capacity of 150 million. The fully developed capacity of DWC Al Maktoum International is likely to be something like 260 million. Yeah. So we have a way to go.
Incredible. Yeah.
And by the time we've got 5 runways built and all of the 6 concourses and terminal buildings constructed, I mean, it will be a spectacle. But the biggest job is, how can we make the experience of the world's largest airport seem incredibly intimate to each and every one of our guests that use that whole facility? That's going to be the trick, and I think that's where processes and technology will come to the forefront.
I'd like to come on to that in more detail, but first, I mean, DXB is a much-loved Dubai institution, loved around the world, known around the world. When Emirates Airline moves to Al Maktoum Airport, whenever that may be, what happens to DXB?
Well, the interesting thing is that's largely going to be driven by what happens in the air rather than what happens on the ground, because the new airport's arrival and departure patterns in the sky will be so busy and so complex that operating 2 very large international airports within the same sort of terminal management area, as we call them, is going to be quite tricky. The other thing, of course, is remember DXB has been developed incrementally over a long period of time. And by the time we get to Al Maktoum International, a lot of the assets will need some quite expensive replacements. So I think feasibly, it's probably the right decision to suggest that Al Maktoum International will become the number one and only airport for Dubai. And although it would be very sad to see DXB fade into the sunset, it's probably the right thing. But again, you can never say never in Dubai. There may be some bright idea between now and then which sees another use for DXB as it stands at the moment.
You've actually touched on how you're kind of approaching the design of the new airport experience for the traveller. But how difficult is it to look 4 or 5 years ahead when we're faced in our daily work lives with generative AI, which means that everything is changing month by month, year by year, and you're looking 4 or 5 years ahead to design the optimal passenger experience? How challenging is that?
Well, the thing is, you see, I think as human beings, we are sort of conditioned to think incrementally. And the problem with that is got us to where we are in the aviation business now. And I don't think that's right for the future. I mean, incremental thinking until relatively recently still gave us carbon tickets. It still gives us disconnected systems at an airport. It still gives us the process by which you have to, having bought your airplane ticket, you then have to confirm, yes, I'm checking in, yes, I'm checking in bags, yes, I'm going through security, yes, I'm going through immigration. I can't think of another product where the point of purchase is then reiterated so many times during the experience. We need to stop thinking incrementally. That's what's holding the industry back. We need to actually say, there is only one process at the point of sale, and it's all done. Baggage, immigration, security, all of that profiling needs to happen at the airport because, of course, we have to make sure the right people are getting on the right plane and they're all safe and secure. But those processes don't have to be visible to the customer. And if you can get rid of them, you get rid of a huge amount of space that you need. And the whole airport process should be about two things, because let's face it, you only go to an airport when you are catching a flight or you're arriving from one. So it's the most efficient means of translating from a surface-based journey to an aviation-based journey. So if we focus on that being the very core DNA of what an airport should be all about, what one should be doing is simply two things: maximizing the flow of our customers at the point of going through the processes, and then maximizing the comfort when people are close to their aircraft. So what I want to try and do is minimize the steps from getting out of the taxi or getting out of the train and to getting close to where the aeroplane is. So all of those processes and the big places where you queue up and join the check-in or security or immigration processes, I want those to be legacy things of the past that you will never see at Al Maktoum International. So let's actually streamline the entire process so it feels intimate at scale. So each of those concourses will be about 30 million absolute max, and we will do our best to segregate those journeys and personalize them so everyone feels as though they're being treated as the most important person in the airport at that time.
You've told that beautifully, Paul. I mean, I look at it as if you're saying you and the team really want to pioneer a whole new era of air travel. And that's incredible.
We are so dissatisfied with the general standard of what's provided on the ground at the moment. You know, I think the thing is that aircraft technology has matured. The environment on board an aeroplane has become much, much more high quality. Products have evolved. And of course, in the air, there's a limited amount of things that you can do to pamper your customers. But nevertheless, a lot of airlines, particularly those based in Dubai, have done a huge amount to really make people feel as though there is intimacy at scale. The product quality is excellent at scale. Yeah. We want to make sure the greater opportunity we've got to provide those services on the ground reflects our ability to do something far better than you will ever see at any other airport.
Amazing. Can't wait.
I think the advantages of living close to an airport are obvious from the connectivity perspective.
Paul, I'd like to turn the spotlight now onto an S word, sustainability. I'm interested in the challenge the aviation industry faces in handling questions around those thorny kind of, carbon emissions and energy consumptions. How well do you think the aviation industry as a whole is managing its sustainability credentials and reputation?
Well, there's a big problem. The big problem is uniquely we have to take off from the ground carrying our fuel with us. And currently there's nothing that's as calorifically dense per kilogram as a litre of Jet A1. And that's a big problem because, of course, jet technology relies on fossil fuel for its propulsion. Now, I think there's two levels of this. The first level is how do we continue to use existing propulsion technology and make it greener? And the thing is, of course, when you burn Jet A1, you release carbon. But what we are now trying to do as an industry is find ways of embedding carbon in the first place. So when we actually ignite and burn the fuel in jet engines, we're just releasing the carbon we've already captured. So it's a sort of zero-sum game. Now, that relies on sustainable aviation fuel using sources that actually absorb carbon during the production process. But we have an issue at the moment. At the moment, I think the industry is burning about 1.019 million tons of jet fuel every single day, and it's growing very quickly. It's doubled in consumption despite improvements in technology and cleaner burning engines and more efficient airframes. Over the last 30 years, it's actually doubled in volume. But the difficulty is at the moment, the production of sustainable aviation fuel is tiny versus the consumption. If you put the entire annual consumption of sustainable aviation fuel into the hydrant systems of airports worldwide, it would sustain just 50 hours of consumption. So we've a long way to go to produce it at scale. And the problem is the price at the moment is about 4 times that of a litre of Jet A1.
We are sitting under the extraordinary canopy of Terra, an iconic part of Expo 2020. The lives of Expo and Dubai airports have been sort of intertwined for many years. Now the dust has settled a bit and time has passed. What are your thoughts on the impact of hosting Expo 2020 had on Dubai, but also on Dubai Airport?
Well, it's interesting, actually. As I arrived here, I was taken back to that very happy time when Expo was thriving here. And I'm absolutely sure that this fantastic site with its iconic buildings and great facilities will be the host of so many major events. As you know, we have the Dubai Air Show every couple of years, and I rather think it will only be a matter of time before we bring the Dubai Air Show Gala Dinner to Expo. It would be a great venue for it. And I think that's just one example. Dubai is already known as the absolute center for conferences, exhibitions, all of those events, and people love coming here, particularly when they know between October and March they're going to have blue skies guaranteed. Much of Northern Europe, of course, is still locked in a long, cold, dark winter. So Dubai, certainly for the air show, we found that people love coming here, and it didn't take long for us to be the premier air show in the world, and the one we're hosting in November this year is going to be even bigger and better than ever before. So events and attracting people to the city, I don't think is a problem. The growth in traffic we've seen, the number of guests we've welcomed through the airport since the end of the pandemic has been stratospheric. The hockey stick recovery was not seen anywhere else in the world. So I'm completely confident this will be a fantastic venue for all those events that we know and love, and for many more new events based around new technology, AI, all sorts of experiences. And we look forward to supporting and participating in those.
I just want to pick up on the sort of events, conferences, trade show, because the Dubai Airport and Emirates Airline have been a power horse combined in terms of the growth to Dubai. But the hosting of events and congresses has been also a key factor. Can you kind of talk us through, from your position as CEO of an airport, how you manage the business traveller compared to the leisure traveller?
Well, it's very interesting. We've got a number of different passenger personas. Sorry, I used the word passenger. Guest personas. And the idea is to understand exactly what those guest personas are and how different they are. And you've got so many different demographic groups and different needs, those travelling with children, those on business, those who want the minimum of fuss, those who need much more assistance. And we've actually tried to relive in our minds and rewalk the journeys that each of those persona of customer will actually see. And actually, it's very interesting. If you look at a lot of business travellers, they just want very slick, very quick processes. They want to get into the lounge. They might want to sit and have something to eat. Then they want to get onto the aeroplane. So no fuss, just give them a high quality environment and make it all about speed. That's one thing. If you've got those travelling with children on holiday, for example, or those going to visit friends and family, or those going to weddings or things like that, their needs may be very much different. They may need some entertainment. They may need to take their children somewhere. Some of them might want to go and have a manicure and a pedicure. Some want their hair cut. Some will want to go swimming. The idea is to think about all of those things that those different personas may require, and actually think outside the box of some they perhaps haven't thought of, and then to be able to persuade our partners and all of our concessionaires to think differently. I mean, we've got things like pod hotels, we've got hotels inside the airport with executive suites. If you want to hold a meeting, there's plenty of meeting rooms, all sorts of different things, and there'll be many, many more inventions and clever ideas that we'll be trialling over the next few years.
All around us, there's construction going on of our apartments, townhouses and villas, and we're looking forward to welcoming our first residents into Expo City in early 2026. We're anticipating a lot of those residents probably working at Al Maktoum Airport, and it would be great to hear what the sense of working in aviation is like, and how being close to an airport actually would really help your work-life balance.
Well, it's really interesting because historically, living and working close to an airport is a bit of a mixed bag of advantage and disadvantage. And it's very interesting hearing some of the debates about airports that are trying to add capacity. The actual powerhouse of any local business around an airport is so interdependent on the activity at the airport. Yet, of course, living around an airport has, issues of noise, issues of pollution, but as I've said earlier, we are working very hard, and aircraft noise is no longer a major cause of sleep disturbance within, a short distance of any airport now, because aircraft technology has moved on and aircraft are so much quieter than they were before. So I think the advantages of living close to an airport are obvious from the connectivity perspective. I mean, great if you can just jump on a plane and go away for the weekend, or be at a place of business overseas very quickly, the obvious convenience factors. But I think you'll find also the quality of life around an airport will improve as we address some of the sustainability issues. And I really do think, if you look at the environs of DXB at the moment, there are so many businesses in the immediate vicinity that are completely dependent on a thriving hub. And this is why Expo and the logistics hub of Al Maktoum International will be so lucrative for so many businesses and so many people's livelihoods in the future. The sort of logistics that so many airlines are able to manage through DXB with our 240 destinations, 92 airlines, and 104 different countries. And that list is going to grow enormously. We are the true hub connecting the world, and to live and work around that hub will be, I think, enormously beneficial to people's livelihoods in the future.
And then if you look a little bit wider around this area, the southern part of Dubai with Jebel Ali, you've got the Dubai Exhibition Centre, which is obviously going to be a perfect marriage, really, with Al Maktoum Airport, because it'll be the largest event exhibition space in the Middle East. So you can see this whole part of Dubai has just become a thriving centre of what will be the future of Dubai.
I think we're very, very fortunate that Dubai's always had a long-term aspirational vision and has really stuck to that. I mean, there's only been that one idea of continual growth and improvement in quality, and that's run through everything we do. And I think that's also the vision of our rulers, the vision of people in government have just continued to tread that path. Consistency and tenacity of a long-term vision can produce huge benefits rather than when there's changes of government, changes of philosophy, one party comes in and decides that the other one wasn't doing a good job, so they change everything. I think that continual sort of concentric circle management we fortunately don't have here. So we, I think, are in a great position to be absolutely the world leader at all of those things you've described.
Paul, just turning to you for a minute. You're a highly accomplished cathedral organist, and you probably could have embarked on a career as a professional musician. Do you ever think, or have there ever been those sort of sliding door moments in your life when you look back and you think, had I taken that door rather than the one I did, my life would have been so different?
I think that's a very good question, and of course the answer is yes, there could have been those sliding door moments. I mean, my father wasn't particularly supportive of my idea of becoming a penniless cathedral organist. You know, he used to tell me even the most perfectly played Bach toccata will never pay the gas bill. So go out and get a proper job, will you? And I didn't like him at the time for the advice he gave me, but retrospectively, things I don't think have turned out too badly. And now I try and combine the two whenever I can. And it's good to have some stretching goals outside of your professional life because it keeps, you know, your entire thought process very fertile. I mean, I can go home, I can sit at my organ bench, I can get a piece of, you know, highly complex French romantic music out, and within a couple of minutes and a couple of pages of music, I'm completely transformed. And, you know, it's great to have things to work towards. I mean, a few years ago, you've mentioned already, playing for the Pope in Abu Dhabi was an enormous privilege. I mean, no pressure. I think actually I had more people viewing that on television than any U2 or Rolling Stones concert has ever produced. And in 2027, I'm actually playing in Notre Dame in Paris on the reopened cathedral on the organ that's been refurbished there. So that's something to work towards, and I shall definitely have to be at the top of my game.
What travel innovation would you wish for? Paul, I'd like to conclude with a quick fire round.
Right.
You can be as candid as you like.
Excellent.
Paul, at heart, are you a city dweller or a countryside lover?
That's quite difficult. I love the countryside. I love the open space. I mean, I've got a house in leafy Sussex, which is as far away as you can get from Dubai in terms of environment. But when I'm in Dubai, I love being in the city. So I think I'm both.
You'd like to have your cake and eat it?
I would love my cake and eat it and have double cream on top.
This might be challenging. If not Dubai, which city in the world would you most like to live?
Tricky. I love Singapore. I think it's the closest to the Dubai model in the Far East. I lived in Hong Kong for a few years. I really loved that. London, I think, is the most walkable city. Paris is great. I think the answer is that I'd love to live a few months in many different cities, and it's so difficult because so many cities are so different. I'd love to pick and choose all the best bits, but I think travel, once it gets in your blood, you can never get rid of it. That's why I love the aviation business so much.
I love that answer. It's the same as the previous one. I'd like my cake and eat it.
Absolutely right.
I'll have a bit of Paris and a bit of London. And
call me greedy, but you know, there you go.
Paul, you've sort of answered this earlier, but I'm going to give you a magic wand and say, what travel innovation would you wish for?
I'd love to get to the point where supersonic travel becomes hypersonic travel. I'd love to be able to get from Dubai to New York in an hour. I don't know whether it will happen in my lifetime. Very, very likely not. But I think the thing is, if you think about what air travel has done for the good of society around the world, and the invention of the 747 and Joe Sutter and his team, which first flew in 1969, was it transformed people's lives. Long journeys that, were only the preserve of the rich and famous before, are now suddenly very much in the public domain. And now, as aviation continues to grow at an incredible rate, it's because of the constant march of technology. And I really do think that if we can continue to make air travel affordable, faster, and more convenient, it will bring about probably world peace, because people will be able to have that eye contact and those relationships that you can't achieve over a screen or through correspondence. I think the world needs to become a more intimate place for all of its citizens, and I'm absolutely sure that would promote peace and harmony globally if we could achieve that.
Do you have a superpower? And if so, is it a natural skill or something you've honed and developed in your life? And let's set aside being a elite level organist.
I think the thing is, one of the things perhaps isn't so much a superpower, but it's, I suppose, just a bit like fire. It's your friend and also your greatest foe. And that is, I'm never short of ideas, but my brain will only let me sleep when it's finished processing all the ideas. I have quite a lot of trouble getting to sleep some nights because my brain's just going, crazy. And when I wake up in the morning, usually all the things that I worried about the night before, whilst I'm in the shower, they usually all get resolved. I think people who are constantly on the move, constantly thinking of doing things, and have the capacity for voracious amount of activity, those are the people I'm most attracted to, and those are the people I've styled myself on.
I actually remember I had a boss years ago who said that his greatest ideas were in that kind of twilight waking moment, and he said, always keep a notepad and paper by the bed, because within 5 minutes the recollection is gone.
Absolutely.
So there must be something in what you've just said. Artificial intelligence, threatening or liberating?
Absolutely liberating. And in the airport space, it's going to be amazing. I mean, if you think of some of the daft things we do, I look, when I go through airport security, and look at those poor people sitting, looking at screens, watching toothbrushes and laptops go through security machines all day. And of course, they have to have a break because they're doing a very vital job, but it's incredibly boring. AI now can tell you, if you put two different types of the same medicine through an airport scanner, it can tell you which is made by which manufacturer. And the airport technology for security scanning has moved on a long way. Couple that with AI, guess what? We can get higher rates of security, we can get it done quicker, and actually we can liberate the poor person sitting watching that screen to do something far more rewarding. So AI will be transformational in making all of those processes disappear, of making those jobs that we don't like doing at airports seamlessly sort of disappear into the background. AI is going to be amazing. It will monitor aircraft turnaround. It will take hours out of the airport process. It will make aircraft fleets more efficient. It will be supporting human decision making at a level of intensity that we've not been able to contemplate before. It will make airport stand allocations so much more dependable, and we will be able to put, for example, all of those who want to buy a particular product on a gate closest to the shop that will satisfy their needs. All sorts of things. I mean, AI is an absolutely liberating experience, and I'm an early adopter of technology, I'm an early adopter of AI, and I can see boundless applications for it. It will be life-changing for us all.
Fantastic. Last question. We always end on this. Do you have a personal motto by which you live?
I certainly do, and that is, those of you who would like us not to do something, would you mind standing aside whilst we get on with it? I think that's the thing, people who just say the trouble is, or the problem with that is, that has no place in my vernacular. If you have a goal in mind and you think that goal is going to deliver something outstanding, just go for it. And I learnt that, I think, from Richard Branson, who was a great mentor for me earlier in my career. I was very fortunate to be very closely working alongside with him at the early hours of Virgin Atlantic's birth. And he was just a powerhouse of ideas, and we'd sit together and I'd say, what about this or what about that? And he'd say, let's try it. I said, when would you like that done? Well, tomorrow would be fine if you can't do it today. And try things. Don't be afraid of failure. Just get on with it. If it doesn't work, we'll quietly drop it and get on with something else. I think that's it. Fear has no place, I think, in innovation. You just got to get on with it.
Paul, it has been fascinating to hear how your romance of aviation started, through to how your incredible passion for what AI can do to transform the guest, the traveller's experience. I feel that the airport of Dubai are in really safe hands. Your continuity over 18 years has really been remarkable, and we all as passengers, all of us as your guests at any one point are in your debt for what you have done for the aviation industry in Dubai.
That's very kind of you, Salto. I would have to add, though, I've had an awful lot of help on the way, and a great team, fantastic team, great leadership, and quite honestly, I've had two fantastic bosses that I can think of, Sir Richard Branson and His Highness Sheikh Ahmed bin Saeed Al Maktoum. They're quite similar in some ways, but the biggest thing and the biggest compliment both of them have paid me is to be able to let me get on and do my job and delegate my authority to others who similarly can get on and just deliver the best guest experience in the world. It's been great talking to you today. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Paul.